Hello, everybody, and welcome to a Silent Ovation, sponsored by Ovation English, the world's first language learning program based on the performing arts. Spirit fingers. I can't help but do it. I'm sorry, I'm going to do it every time. Um, so this is episode 6. Yeah, man, we're on a roll. On a roll. We're so close to getting to Ovation English. And that's going to just change everything, okay? A few more episodes and we get right into Ovation English. And we'll start, maybe we'll get some creative guests. Who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? It all depends on you. If you guys like it and you spread it around. As I said, if you don't, okay, this is for me. So it's all right. So today I want to talk about my two very important talents that I really just put a lot of time and effort into. And the first one I talked about a little bit. I talked about both of them, but the first one I was telling you that, I was, in 5th grade, we had a home economics class, and I was really good at sewing and cooking and all that stuff. The best in my class, first time ever, got an A plus in anything. So that was just a huge lift. And then it wasn't until freshman year in high school when I got into shop class, wood shop class. And that's when it really, really hit. That's when it really, really hit because I just, you know, the way I learned anything was I just have visions. For example, I would hear songs when I was younger, like I started hearing Stairway to Heaven, then I would see myself playing it somewhere, and I'm like, okay, I got to do that. So I try to figure out how do I do that? Well, I got to learn an instrument, so how do I learn an instrument? Well, I don't know, but you got to figure it out. Then once you learn an instrument, you got to, find people to play with, and well, how do you do that? I don't know. Figure it out, answer ads, go on auditions. And then, well, how do I make a song? Well, trial and error, same thing. You just go into it. So, once I got into woodshop class, I was able to just see a print and just create it. I didn't really have to look deep into it. I didn't have to kind of draw it out. I just looked at it, saw the measurements, and I said, okay, cut it out, and they weren't always beautiful, but it's just the ease that it came out of and the feeling of it. There's something in carpentry, because it is one of the oldest trades in human history, that when you create something out of raw wood, something that is functional, it's something magical about that. Because you're creating something that people have been creating for, centuries, centuries. So, and to know that you're passing that on or you're into this, it's magical. It's very magical, especially when you start learning about wood and the types of wood and what certain types of woods can do and what they can build, and it's really incredible. And the thing that I loved about it the most was I was able to get my hands on it. I was able to touch it. Instead of just reading, nothing happens to me when I'm reading something. But if I'm touching something, it's just this. It just works for me. I could feel it. It's like I always tell people. Look, I'm not the smartest guy here, but these 10 guys are 10 times smarter than this one. And it's true. Anything I can get my fingers on, I could feel it, and then the vision comes, and then, or I get the vision, and then these guys figure it all out. So, so having woodshop, that gave me, and plus the teacher, Donnie Mara, just the best guy in the world, just really influenced me and just kind of said, man, you're getting good at this. And we had a table saw and all this stuff, and I was the only one that was able to use the table saw. So in the middle so freshman year I finished wood shop, and I created the rocking horse, and I did a cradle. as well for my teacher, Holly Seawalk, because she was pregnant. And then so I was like, man, and everybody in the school was like, oh my God, because it's pretty, it was intense, it's cool. And as I said, it's functional. So, and she used it, she used the cradle for her baby, and she loved it, and as far as I know, she used it for her second child as well. It's like an heirloom, it goes down, and that's the beautiful thing about woodworking. It's an art, and if it lasts centuries. So going into my sophomore year of high school, I was in woodshop, and I'm like, yeah, king, So about a quarter way through the school year, my teacher was like, hey, you should get a job after school, and I was like, oh, I can do that. And like, yeah, at 15 you can do, part-time work. And I was like, awesome. So I went to the counselor. The only thing they ever really did for me, which was great. They found me this job right down the street from the school, and it was big, nice big wood shop, and they made crates to put, like artworks in, or things to be delivered overseas. Their main thing was making crates. So I got in, and I went in for the interview, and I said, yeah, I'm doing this and this, and next year I'm going to BOCES, for carpentry, but I work, with the saws at school. And he's like, you work with the table saw? And I'm like, yeah, man, of course, yeah, of course, dude, no worries. So he's like, all right. So he hired me, and the first day, it was great. I just started, basically cleaning up and doing certain things, and I used a little bit of the saws, a few times. And so the second day I go in, and my boss is like, okay, you ready to use the saw, the table saw? And I was like, yeah, man, of course. He's like, okay, well, you have to cut 100 of these squares diagonally so they make triangles, okay? So I'm like, all right, sounds cool. It's easy. So, I'm cutting, cutting the pieces, and you're cutting them, you put them over, you cut another one, put them over. Got to about, who knows, 60, 65, and when you don't have the experience, you don't have the experience. So I just cut the piece, took the pieces, put them over to the side, and instead of doing this, I cut the pieces, put them over the side, and I brought my hands back like this. And that's why you see this. Yeah, that little guy got cut off right away. So I cut, I just felt a little pressure. And I was like, and I heard zink. Okay, and then I look, and this thing is, and I'm like, and the first thing I thought of was, I like this job, I don't want to get fired. So I just, continue to work until my brain said, okay, wait a minute, you're dripping blood all over the place. Just go to the bathroom, clean it up, wrap it up, get some tape, So I did that. But I was in the bathroom, and I'm cleaning it up, and, after like a minute or two, I hear knocking on the door. Justin, are you okay? I see blood. And I was like, yeah, man, everything's cool. And I'm like, oh, fuck, I'm not really realizing I just cut my finger off, So he just, he's like, can you please open the door? And I'm like, no, dude, I'm all right. So he's like, Justin, open it. So of course I open the door, and he sees it. He turns bright white, and I'm like, no, man, it's no big deal. I'm good. I just got. He's like, we got to get you to the hospital. And I was like, oh man. And the whole time I'm thinking, I'm just gonna get fired. All I cared about was the job, My tip of my fingers laying somewhere in sawdust somewhere. It took us like a half hour to find it. It was really, it's hysterical. And I wasn't feeling much pain because I was in shock. But man, once I got to the hospital, I feel so bad for the nurse that was helping me out, because I ripped her a new asshole. I just screamed bloody murder at her because I was in so much pain. It just caught up with me. And then they gave me a shot of whatever it was, and the first thing I said once I felt good, I was like, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. And she was like, don't worry. So then, my boss came into the hospital room and he goes, "Congratulations." And I'm like, "For being a douche?" He goes, "Now you're a carpenter. Real carpenters, this is what happens. Because you'll never do it again." And I was like, he's like, "So once you're ready, you come back to work." And I was like, "Seriously?" It just, I was like, mother, yeah. So this was like a badge of honor. This was always a badge of honor for me. You show a carpenter this or anybody in the trade, and they go, "Yep, you're one of them." So and once obviously I got fired from that job just because it didn't work out. But I loved it. So, and plus I went to BOCES, which is like a vocational school. So I'd go to my school half the day, and then I'd go to BOCES and do carpentry, woodworking, and it was just awesome. You're just learning what you love to learn. That's why I think the trades are so important. It really is. The trades are just so important because even if you don't get into them, what it teaches you, the problem-solving skills, the mechanical skills, how to use your hands, there's nothing like it. There's no better education. And I've seen it. Believe me, I've seen dudes who work in an office their whole life. They don't even know how to hold a hammer. I mean, come on. Just So it's very important. And it saves you a lot of money. You work on your own house. You work on your own car. You work on your own face and hair. I mean, it's amazing. Or you barter and you trade your skills with other people who have skills. Like I would trade with plumbers. Be like, "Hey man, I'll do your siding, or I'll do, crown molding for your house if you come in and, change the toilets, or, do the." It was awesome. And they're like, "Yeah, because it costs so much." I'm like, "Yeah, I know, you would cost so much money." So boom, trade for trade. It's so valuable. So valuable. Um, so after high school, I decided, obviously I wasn't going to go to a university or a college because I didn't take SATs. They didn't give it to me. And I just said, okay, well, I'm going to go to a tech school. I should get some type of degree. So I went to New England Tech, which is in Rhode Island, for 2 years. My major was construction and cabinet making, and it was awesome. It was just awesome. Just every day you're in this huge shop, and you're talking to other people that are into the same thing as you. And the only problem was when I went there, I had to learn basic math. So because I didn't know anything. They took math away from me when I was in sixth grade. So, they're like, okay, Pythagorean theorem, geometry, and I'm like, huh? Geoma what? Ge- isn't the thing you jump in? What the? And they're like, no, douche. It's 45 degree. How to find the angle? And I'm like, huh? A squared plus B squared equals C squared. I'm like, fire's coming out of my head. So my teacher was like, dude, what's going on? And I'm like, so I explained to him. And he was an older gentleman, and he was like, "Well, if you come on Saturday mornings at this time, I'll be here and I'll help you out, and I'll teach you, the basics of division and multiplication." And I did. I took that opportunity. Anytime, that's the one thing I'm so happy about myself, is that anytime I saw an opportunity, I took it, no matter what. And I didn't think about it. It was just like, yes, this guy wants to help me. Okay, all right. So I went every Saturday and learned how to do basic multiplication and division, and then finally went to geometry, and I caught up. So I was very thankful, and I excelled at it. But he taught me with carpentry. He taught me the multiplication and division. He put it to something. So he put it to two pieces of wood or one piece, so I could really understand it. I could put my hands on it and really see it. So he's like, "You're a very visual learner. You're a very hands-on learner." And I was like, "Yeah." So that's why it worked for me, And that's when I realized the school systems, they didn't know what to do. Just had no idea, they taught for neurotypical people. And that's it. So if you weren't neurotypical, you were screwed. Now I think it's different, but which is good. But it was very difficult. But yeah, man, once I got into the workforce, it just happened so quick. I started working for Sunrise Carpentry, Brian Gock out of Yorktown, and I worked a year with him. We were doing siding and everything. It was just so much fun. I mean, it was so much. This guy took me to the Yankees World Series Game 6 when they won, when Wade Boggs was on the horse. I mean, I still have the ticket. I'll show it to you. I don't know where it is, but I still have my ticket stub. I still keep it with me in my wallet. So that was amazing, because he appreciated all the work I did. I was started doing like crown moldings and moldings, and he didn't even know how to do it, so I was just figuring it out on my own. And then I got hired by Stain Grade Woodworking out of Bethel, Connecticut, and man, I learned really fine woodworking, a lot of molding work and all that. And then, after a year with them, I got hired by a guy named Joe. I can't remember his last name, but he was Pyramid Construction. And he was like, look, I want you to work for me, but you're not going to work directly for me. You're going to have your own business, so you're going to be a subcontractor. And I was like, so I'm going to open my own business? He goes, yep, I'll supply you with all the tools. And I'm like, okay. So that's when I created Silver Hammer Custom Woodworking, and I would just follow him wherever he went. And then came the day where I just broke down crying. And I said, I can't do this anymore because I needed to pursue my other love, which was music. Because that was really, like carpentry was my foundation, but it wasn't my passion. I loved it, but it wasn't my passion. The thing that I really wanted was the music because those visions were so strong. The visions I would have of myself playing were so strong, I felt like it was real. So I was like, okay, I got to obtain that. So that's when I gave up carpentry for a while, just left it, and pursued music. And that's when, I started playing with that drummer Hugo from Portugal. And it was just, from there, I started auditioning for other bands in Manhattan, bands I should never have auditioned for, but learned a good lesson. How to take no or how to get kicked in the ass, Rejection. It's great. It's great to learn how to take rejection. It's probably the most important thing, So, I mean, dude, I told you, I would get rejected just because I played my bass high. And they're like, dude, if you can play your bass lower, we'll get you. But if that sucks. You look, that's so uncool. And I'm like, really? That's how I pace, and they say goodbye. And then you have auditions where they're just like, all right, play this, and I play it, and they go, nope, you suck, get out. And you just go, all right, that's it. I wasn't right for them, and once you understand that you're not right for that project, then it makes it easier, and you go, okay, there's something for me. So I just started, playing with, I finally, got auditions and started playing with bands and started getting paying my dues on the stage, playing anywhere I could play. I played any, I tried to get into any band possible. Didn't matter the genre, didn't matter what it was. I played, I did it. And plus, as I said, I was very lucky that I was a bass player because in the late 90s, early 2000s, everything was grunge and that post-grunge. So bass wasn't really prevalent and everybody wanted to be the big shot. So everybody needed a bass player. And I had a good reputation, So, I was, that's when I realized, being a musician is not easy. Because, man, it's hard work. People think, oh, man, it's just the best. I'm like, nah, dude. So, like, I'll tell you what the schedule, what we do. So if you're in a band, I was in a band, and this was called Simulcast. Really great musicians, really great people, really great people. That's where I met Johnny Pax and Rick Donato and Tyler and all those other guys. Really great musicians, great performers. So if we had a gig at 10, we had to be at the studio by 7 o'clock. Put all the gear in the van, Then you go to the club or wherever it is that you take everything out of the van and you put it into the club. You start setting up. You set up all your gear. Then you do your sound checks. Then once everything's over, all the sound checks are over, then you start to play. And you start at 10 o'clock and you go until 2. Sometimes 3. depending on the night, So you're playing sometimes playing for 4 hours, and you're playing in a bar and in a club. And me, I don't like to drink. I'm not a big drinker. I never really liked it, because I really don't like being around drunk people. But when you're playing in a bar and a club, that's all you got. And these people, when they're drunk, they just don't know what they're doing, and they're coming up to you while you're playing, like, hey, Freddie Bird, and you're just like, dude, like, like, no, talk later, like trying to play. And you got girls, hey, do you know Britney Spears? Like, and I'm playing, and they're like in my face, and like, can you play Britney Spears? And I'm like, huh? What? Then you get, those that are, when's the DJ coming on? I'm like, dude, I'm still playing, man. Come on, give me a break, So, then you're done with your gig at 2, and then, you take a little break. Maybe if the bar or club, feeds you eat or whatever. But then you got to take everything out, down, wrap up all the cables, wrap up, all the speakers, put them in the van. Take the van to the rehearsal studio, unpack that, and then you're home by like 5. And you maybe make 100 yourself a night, but you do it for the love of it. That's what it was. But I was very fortunate to play in a lot of good bands and to play with a lot of great people. But being on stage is just the greatest place to be. There's no other. I just love being on stage in front of people. There's just something happens inside of me where it's like even teaching. When I'm teaching, I feel like my students are my audience, and I'm on the stage. Just that feeling of you're in control, and no matter what you do, it's you and only you there, as a performer, but obviously as a band, you're working together. But you control the emotions of the audience, and it's just that amazing feeling because you see people watching you, and all they wish is, I wish I could do that. I wish I could have the balls to go up there and just do that, because it is, because it's being a performer is you're constantly being judged. I mean, that's our job. We want people to judge us. That's how we get going, You have to get judged. That's why we do it, So for that, we've eliminated that fear of judgment because that's a part of our job, And that was a huge, huge lesson, greatest lesson I ever had was just, judgment is what you perceive it as, It doesn't mean anything. So I never, if somebody says something about me, I go, okay, great, thanks. Bad press is good press. That's the life of a performer, So doing, going into shows and, I was able to play in a lot of really cool places, traveled around the States, in a little van, just like, like you see, I was able to do all that, and that's what I had envisioned, and all that happened for me, just because I really, whatever I saw, I just said, that's what I'm going to do. I didn't know how to get there. I just knew that was the end point and I would have to find my way. So once I was really on stage, it was like really the first time I was ever really, really proud of myself. Carpentry just kind of came naturally. It just happened. But this is something that I wanted. It was the only time that I was ever jealous when I would see other kids in my class playing, and I'm like, motherfucker, I want to do that, And that just pushed me. And so, being on stage and playing these shows and being able to play in different states and different types of venues. I played, the New York City Marathon with Moonspank. Moonspank was the last band I was in, and that's when social media came out. So you can go onto YouTube and just put on Moonspank, and you'll see videos of me and them just having a great time, doing some festivals, going to shows in buttfuck, Pennsylvania, and it was amazing. It was just an amazing experience. Even though you're traveling with three other dudes in a van and you're sleeping together, and you want to kill each other, but it's just you look back and you're like, man, really, I look back at that now and I'm just like I didn't get to the point that I thought I was supposed to get to, which was like fame and famous musician. But man, what a relief that I did it, that I attempted it, that I got there. I was in the running because it's one of those things where you have to have luck. You have to be the right place at the right time, and not everybody gets there. But the fact that I was even in the mix was it's just the best feeling. I don't have any regrets about not being a big, no. Like I'm just so thankful. And the fact that I have proof of it, of these it just makes it even better. You know, it makes it reality and you realize that you do things that, not everybody has the ability to do. Either physically or emotionally, and when you do that, it lifts you. It gives you, man, I got so much confidence from that experience of being a musician. So much. Just, because you get instant gratification. Once you get off stage, people, hey, that was great. I mean, I remember I'd have these musicians coming up to me and be like, dude, you're an amazing bass player. Like, how do you do? And I'm like, really? Like, that was just, I have these people that my peers to tell me that I was doing something different or I was cool, wow. Like, it just makes it all worth it. It makes it all worth it to have that knowledge and have that experience. That's why when I had met my ex, I had met her at a show, one of my shows. And, and I kind of said, okay, I was like, the music industry wasn't really going in the direction I wanted it to. Electronic music was really getting popular. Nobody wanted to dance to live bands. They just wanted a DJ. And also, Britney Spears and all those boy bands and Aguilera was up, it was super, super poppy. And that's what everybody wanted to listen to. So I knew that, the time had come. Like that was it. So that's when and plus, look, when you're in a band, you have to remember you're in a band with members that have different personalities, different views on life. And that is the hardest part about being a musician or in a band, is that you have to kind of deal with these other people who might not all be on the same page as you. And, and a lot of the times, bands don't work. They fall apart because of that, because of that. It's hard. It's very hard, because in order to be really successful, everybody has to be on the same page. Everybody has to have that same vision, that same drive. If one person is off, it's like a car with a flat tire. Yeah, it'll run, but it's just eventually just gonna have to stop. It doesn't work. So I just had enough. I had enough. I was very happy with what I had achieved. And, I just said, okay, time to move on to the next phase. And I wasn't like, oh my God, I got to give it. No, it was just very like, okay, I'm ready. And I did. And did I miss music? Of course, I missed it every day. But I was going into this new world of fatherhood or husband or family or, learning all this stuff. So it was totally different than what I had ever done. So it kept my attention. But after these last 5 episodes, 6 episodes, I really learned a lot about myself and what really drove me and what kept me going. And it was all the adversity. That just kept me going, and just this drive that I have to succeed for myself. It's really not. What I do is I do everything for myself, not to prove it to anybody, because I'm the most important person. If I'm not happy with it, then what's the sense? So nobody's going to be happy with it if I'm not happy with it. So, it's just you learn so much from the adversities, and you also learn a lot from the wins. It's just those wins that I had, being on stage, being having a successful business like Justin James Woodworking, and being named number one and Angie's List, and these are great achievements, and those are the things that give you the confidence. And especially when you're just, I didn't know how to run a business. I just knew how to do carpentry, but once again, you jump in the fire and you learn. You make some mistakes, you lose some money here and there, but all in all, if you keep going, it's going to work. So it's just all those things of just persevering, when I wanted to stop, when I wanted to quit because it was getting too hard, I just kept going. I kept seeing an end game. I kept seeing the end. I would envision, I couldn't see the end. So that's what kept me going. And so I'm just very, very fortunate for all that, having the discipline, to practice every day, having the discipline to just keep going with my carpentry skills, and not give up. And, even when things, fell apart, you just keep going, and it really prepared me for fatherhood because, anything can go wrong. So, I'm just so happy that I've had all these negative experiences in my life, because I just might sound crazy, but I'm just so thankful, because I wouldn't be here right now trying this new form of art, which is the podcast. This is what you just have to keep evolving, as a human, as an artist, just keep evolving. But if you don't persevere, if you don't finish, you won't evolve. Just finish, even if it sucks, even if the end result sucks, but you finished it. So it just gives you that confidence, saying, okay, I finished. Didn't come out so great, but I learned so much by getting to the end. So I'm very just grateful for all that. And I think that's it for episode number 6. I'm excited to do number 7 and number 8, because I think after number 8 is when we'll really start getting into Ovation English. So once again, this is a Silent Ovation. My name is Justin McLaughlin. We are sponsored by Ovation English, the world's first language learning program based on the performing arts. Music, acting, movements, all that stuff, all that fun stuff. That's what we do in Ovation English, and we make you what you want to be. So I'll see you next time, guys. Peace out.